For the English introduction of this episode, please skip to minute 1.45.
Ladies and Gentlemen, was haben die Annexion der Krim 2014, die Flüchtlingskrise in Europa 2015, die US-Präsidentschaftswahl 2016, das Brexit Referendum ebenfalls 2016, die französische Präsidentenwahl 2017, die Gelbwestenbewegung in Frankreich 2018, die Proteste in Hongkong 2019 und die Covid-19-Pandemie gemeinsam? Bei all diesen Ereignissen konnte beobachtet, vermutet oder nachgewiesen werden, dass Trollfarmen eine signifikante Rolle bei der Beeinflussung der öffentlichen Meinung und der Verstärkung bestimmter politischer Narrative gespielt haben. Trollfarmen oder Trollarmeen sind organisierte Gruppen, die mittels einer Vielzahl von Online-Profilen auf diversen Social-Media-Plattformen eben Desinformationen, Verschwörungstheorien, hetzende Kommentare oder lupenreine Propaganda erschaffen und verbreiten und dabei vordefinierte Ziele verfolgen. So beispielsweise auch bei der letzten Europa Wahl. Das unabhängige Forschungsinstitut Trollrensics konnte im Auftrag der niederländischen Sozialdemokraten nachweisen, dass offenbar russische Trollarmeen mit Hilfe von zielgerichteten Social-Media-Kampagnen die Ergebnisse zugunsten von beispielsweise AfD und BSW beeinflussten. Also bin ich nach Den Haag gefahren, um Informationen aus erster Hand zu erhalten. Das Gespräch ist auf Englisch und meine Gäste sind, ich war zu Gast bei Robert van der Noordaa und Richard Odekerken. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Twain famously and allegedly said, "A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes." And that was way before modern communication methodologies, aka the internet, aka social media. In this day and age, everyone is familiar with the sheer volume of rumors, hearsay, and straight-up disinformation we're confronted with on a daily basis, right? Right? Well, imagine we have no idea. Imagine probably half the profiles you come across on social media are not backed by a real person, or rather are backed by a real person who operates 50 different profiles across various platforms following a certain agenda. We're in troll farm territory now. Organized groups of people creating and spreading disinformation, inflammatory comments, misleading memes, divisive content, and straight-up propaganda to alter and manipulate public opinion, targeting specific demographics or regions to influence political outcomes. Polarization is key, and if we are at each other's throats, they have done a great job. Some notable successes attributed to troll farms include the 2016 US presidential election, the Brexit Referendum, and the 2014 annexation of Crimea. Most recently, data was analyzed showing their interference with the EU elections, where troll farms worked in favor of the right-wing AfD and the party of Sarah Wagenknecht. In order to gain some insight and ultimately find out what's going on in the lawless lands of the World Wide Web, I went to Den Haag in the Netherlands to have a talk with a gentleman of the independent internet investigation agency Trollrensics. At least if anyone knows how big of a problem we're dealing with here, who is benefiting from all the turmoil, and what can or can't be done about it, it's probably them. So join me in this wide-ranging conversation with Robert van der Noordaa and Richard Odekerken.
Ladies and gentlemen, yeah!
Natürliche Ausrede.
If I get any closer, I hope you're licking it.
Wo alles nicht ganz so schlimm oder nicht ganz so geil ist.
Was wirklich drauf anlegt, könnte man Suicide by Tiger begehen.
Ja, es kann schief gehen.
Und das ist natürlich.
Hier werden nicht so viele Leute erschossen.
10.000 Mann, wir brauchen Pferde und Kanonen.
Ich finde den Plan super. Die Welt geht zugrunde.
Alles Kacke, bis nächste Woche.
We get a lot of requests for podcasts because of our really weird work.
Yes, of course. And do you answer a lot of requests?
podcast, I think we accepted all of them. I don't think I've ever declined. I decline if I don't like the if it's far right people or
Far right people approach you.
yeah, then I don't or people who are also from broadcasters that also broadcast propaganda type of stuff. Then I say no. Yeah.
Okay, so you look at what you're getting yourself into.
Yes.
Okay, but maybe to kick it off, maybe you guys want to introduce yourselves. Like, how did you come up with what you do? And well, later on we get to what you're doing.
Okay, sure. Shall I start?
Sure.
I have a bit different background, but I used to the past 25 years. I used to build a lot of industry, mostly in Ukraine and Russia. So I have a very long background in those countries. And in 2013, when I was living in Russia, even before they annexed Crimea, I saw a lot of weird accounts and propaganda was peaking, mainly because of these Maidan protests in Ukraine. And quite soon after that, I think probably a year or so after this, I started looking at these accounts like, can I somehow find out if it's a fake account and if these are groups of accounts? So I think I was the sort of pioneer trying to find troll farms 11 years ago. But I quickly ran into technical problems. And then at some point I called Richard.
Yeah, so I'm the IT guy of us. My background is also in IT. I've been studying computer science since my 18th in Delft. During my studies, I also became involved in what back then was the Dutch hacker scene.
Ah, yeah.
So
Chaos Computer Club.
Yeah, the Dutch version of that. So I also have a background in being able to reverse engineer stuff. I always want to know how things work. After my studies, I went to work in data communications, in healthcare and in logistics. But I always had my hobby to analyze and to figure stuff out. After a year or 8 or so in that boring, slow business-to-business data communications, I went into another direction. And I started working as an IT director for a company specializing in customer contact. So then I also started working with online communities, with chat, with email responses, large telephony systems, stuff like that. But I still was doing all kinds of side projects, analyzing stuff, and that's how I started to help out Robert, because he was calling me up like, oh, I have a 4 gigabyte database here, and when I try to open it in Microsoft Access, then my computer crashes and I don't know what to do, and all I need is all the phone numbers that are in there. Can you please help me? So I started to write some scripts for that to help him out. We have known each other since, I don't know.
15. We were 15, I think.
When we were 15 years old, so 35 years or something.
Okay.
So we know each other very well. We know each other's strengths and weaknesses and peculiar characteristics. So that really helps us work together very well. So we did some of those small scripts and some, one-off analysis jobs. And then around the time the pandemic came, I think.
Just before
the pandemic.
2019.
We started developing the concept of trollforensics, because what we saw is that a lot of journalists especially had issues on analyzing online news they saw, and they were not able to determine if something was fake news or real news, or how things were being influenced without them knowing. And at that time, I think it was also the Minister of Internal Affairs in the Netherlands, Kasia Ollongren. She said, well, determining fake news is really a task of journalism. And we were like, but journalists don't know how to do that. They have no clue. They have no tools. They don't have the technical knowledge. So we decided, can we get all our experience together and make sure that we kind of productize what we're doing, both in software and in services.
because nowadays it seems like determine what is news and what is fake news, what is information and what is disinformation is not so much knowing about, well, the facts and reality, but also how these news are manufactured, where they came from, how they spread, right?
Yeah, so we look often at like what we call patient zero or patient hero. So who starts some rumor or some propaganda frame? So we analyze this, but the companies really specializes in finding very large troll farms. So we've found Russian and Chinese and Azerbaijani and Turkish troll farms. So basically hundreds or thousands and thousands of accounts working as a group, pushing some propaganda, trying to influence elections, this kind of stuff.
This is what a description of a troll farm would be.
Yeah, there is one party, not necessarily one person, but there is like one sort of owner. And there are two versions, either completely automated, so there are no people behind it, or you have people behind it. And sometimes there's no sort of hybrid. You can, if you have an automated bot, you can also log in and use it. So then sometimes a person can be behind it. But what we still see is that a lot of those troll farms have people behind it, which is interesting to see, because it sometimes means that Chinese have thousands of people in buildings just behind a laptop, and the whole day they spend just pushing fake news, for instance.
How do they do that? How does like if I want to start a troll farm, what should I incentivize the people that I want to be working there? What do they do? What is the job description?
It almost works like you're working for a newspaper. So I think this internet research agency, it's a very famous troll farm, one of the first like large troll farms that they found from Russia. The US State Department was pushing Twitter, which is now called X, at the time they knew that there must be some sort of troll farm, and at some point Twitter released data, so handles of accounts and what they were doing. But you can even see it online what they're doing. So they start with some campaign. So sometimes hundreds of accounts start in the same minute with the same type of posts and info. So with the same hashtags. And sometimes these hashtags are not even existent. So it basically works like a newspaper. So they discuss what they're going to deal with that day, what they're going to tweet. Each person has maybe 10, 20 accounts on one social media platform, but this internet research agency had a lot of different social media platforms. So they used Instagram, they used Facebook, they used Twitter at that time, and they used a sort of like blogging sites where they wrote blogs. And then they included those links to those sort of articles that they wrote into posts on Facebook and Twitter.
So they were writing the articles in a blog format, and then on social media were referring to the articles
that they also wrote. Yes,
this is kind of brilliant.
Yeah, that was one of the first successes that I had. That I found that same army even before Twitter did. And it was actually because I was mixed up in some sort of online fight of a Dutch journalist who illegally went to Donetsk through Russia. And a lot of these weird accounts started attacking me. And those were the accounts of this internet research agency. So for years we worked on perfecting this. And what we do now is we work a lot for governments. So they ask us check whether our elections are being influenced or not. And what you noticed, what you saw, was because we were hired by the EU to have a look if the EU elections were being influenced.
Let's wait a little until we get there. How old is the phenomenon of troll farms? I mean, the phenomenon of propaganda obviously is as old as the human species. So how old what were the first troll farms or the first attempts to create a troll farm?
The oldest I ever found was 2011. It doesn't mean that it's possible that people had it before even, but
But this is somehow the range of time that we're dealing with.
no, I
Somehow.
found one older. This there's a famous Dutch singer, and he and his sort of manager, they also created hundreds of accounts on different social media platforms, and these accounts were his fans, but they were all fake.
Okay.
And this guy started in 2008. Yeah, it was about 10 years of.
I think there's also a very thin line, of course, between online marketing, what it is called in a friendly term, where people are just being hired to push a certain message, and a troll farm where maybe a country, a state actor is hiring those people to push a political message, or maybe some kind of partisan group is pushing some religious message. It's all variants of each other. And of course, propaganda is, 1920s Russian invention, where the state was really determining everything that was printed. And at the moment the internet came, that possibility disappeared.
Yeah.
Because there was no control over the media anymore. So I think from that moment on, also governments started looking for other ways to influence the public opinion. So I think it started right away when the internet, when the web became popular amongst non-researchers. So that must have been, 1996 or something.
So when the internet became a place where people hang out, kind of.
Exactly.
But I mean, in the early 90s, of course, there was the internet, but it was, unless for scientific or some research properties, almost kind of useless.
Yeah, well, not useless, but it
Maybe
was still
yes, but
very
you know
limited.
what I mean.
Yeah.
It was more like a library, and a library is not necessarily the most famous spot to hang out with your friends.
No, definitely. It was still the time of BBS and dialing in with 18K, what was it? 8 modem.
K4, yeah. I think that it was 1996 or 1997 when people started interacting with each other via the web, and the first forums came online.
Yeah, forums, and then later on MySpace and all of this.
I think from that moment on, you had people who were trying to push their message.
Yeah.
But if you talk about troll farm, that's the moment where you really have a bigger actor, I think like a state or something, that is really deliberately, strategically pushing the same kind of messages over and over again.
And to take this internet research agency, for example, it's, am I correct? This was not necessarily their message, but they were contractors. They had a contract to do certain things, and they did.
Yeah, the guy who was the owner of this company was this very famous Russian guy, this leader of this Wagner private Russian
that
army,
was
this
him,
Prigozhin.
right?
Yeah, he was the owner of this. I know the building. I used to work quite a lot in St. Petersburg, so I passed this building quite a number of times. There were about 400 people working there. About 1/4 was working on international kind of stuff. So they also copied stuff in other languages and probably used Google Translate. Most of these people were actually to influence the Russians themselves. So posting in Russian certain info. So they had like two parts of the company. One directed abroad, and one part is aimed at their own people.
Okay, what was the name of the guy? Prigozhin?
Yeah, Yevgeny Prigozhin.
Prigozhin. Isn't he like dead right now?
Yeah. He wanted to attack Moscow, so he moved with his Wagner army. He was already driving with a lot of tanks and whatever to Moscow. They already started blowing up bridges.
Yeah.
And then it seemed like they threatened some family of him. And then at some point he stopped. And later on, he was in an airplane and they shot him out of the sky. It was a Russian missile that hit the plane, so they killed him.
This is really a weird story.
It is.
You can't really make this up. This is like the James Bond 2.0 version of some sketchy stuff going on.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was in charge of the Internet Research Agency.
Yeah, he founded it and financed it, but he was probably paid by Kremlin. But now they wouldn't say that anymore. But at that time, it was like, yeah, you can't call this a Russian government thing because he's like sort of private contractor. And I was always
he's
like,
a contractor.
you can't talk about Russia like this because it doesn't matter whether it's a part of the government. It's some oligarch, some rich guy who starts something, and they're all in this influence sphere of Kremlin. Yeah, that is not officially a government agency. Who cares? And now that people don't. But at that time, I got a lot of critics like, yeah, but this Internet Research Agency, you can't call it Kremlin. It's like, yeah, sure, of course.
Okay, I mean this is the private contractor thing is almost as old as the market itself.
Yeah.
I mean there are stories, probably true stories of like mercenary groups and so on and so forth, and every government takes advantage of such tactics to to not be involved in it directly.
Guns for hire.
Guns for hire. Yeah, sure.
There are still a lot of these Wagner groups in God knows how many African countries. Recently, in I think it was Mali, they killed a lot of these Russians.
And they're also like from the Wagner group, like a departure of them, or
Yeah, now after this Prigozhin died, I think they sort of integrated it with the regular Russian military. But before it was like a mercenary group, so he was paid a lot of money to basically deliver people who fight against Ukrainians or even Syria. They were deployed.
Yeah, like the is it like the picture book mercenary group, Guns for Hire, like you said.
Yeah.
All right, and this wasn't he some sort of the chef or a cook at the Kremlin?
He was also called the cook of Putin because he had restaurants everywhere, and he also cooked the food for Kremlin people, including Putin. So they called him the Putin's cook, indeed. Correct.
That would be a nice biography to write of this gentleman.
Yeah.
Okay, but back to the internet. So the research, when the Internet Research Agency did what they do, or maybe to pedal back a bit, what exactly did they do again?
Well, basically, it's a large group of people who have a lot of these accounts. So maybe per person they have like 20 accounts on a certain social media platform. At some point, we were in contact with the journalist who worked there for some time. We invited her to come to Netherlands to explain how it worked. And she said, well, you have a room, you sit behind a computer, you have maybe 10, 20 accounts on a certain social media platform. They tell you what to post about. And then some of them are more successful than others. Depends, of course, what you write and what pictures you include and links, this kind of stuff. But for instance, one of the that went viral worldwide. We investigated what the Internet Research Agency did when that Malaysian plane with all those Dutch people was shot down, MH17.
Yeah.
And that was the largest campaign ever done by this Internet Research Agency. The day after the crash, it was 17th of July 2014, so 10 years ago. The day after, so 18th of July, in the morning, they started at 11 with several hundreds accounts at the same moment with the same hashtags. And they sent 65,000 tweets, now called posts, that Ukraine shot the plane down. They were basically blaming Ukraine, which it wasn't Ukraine.
This was in 2014?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so 10 years ago exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was the largest campaign ever done in a very short time. So it's 24 hours. They started day after the crash at 11 in the morning, and they stopped at 11 in the morning the day after that. So 24 hours, 65,000 tweets. All handwork.
All handwork.
Yeah. So
no bots.
People behind computers. Yeah, exactly.
How is that? How is the possible? If you like log in and onto accounts, shouldn't there be some measurements taken by the corporations of Facebook and so on and so forth to avoid this?
Well, you can use different browsers. You can use them in private mode. You can use virtual machines. You can use VPNs. There's all kinds of ways to hide the fact that you are 20 accounts sitting on the same laptop.
And this is all consumer products, like no high tech savviness required.
No, you can just create those accounts yourself. So if you and I want to do this, we can start today. We just start creating a lot of those accounts. And before, Twitter was actually tried to find these armies, and if they found them, they reported about them. The technique how they did that was still, let's not go into details how they did that, but that was really shaky. So we found, I don't know how many armies we found in the last 11 years, but it's really a lot. And then most of them were never found by Twitter. And now under Musk, I don't think anyone checks anymore. So I don't think it's so we have armies. The one in Germany is probably, it could be like a few 100,000 accounts. And nobody apparently at X checks whether somebody creates these armies. If we can find it, if we have enough knowledge to find them, then they should be able to do this at X.
I mean, you're very humble, but I would also argue that the corporations with all the money and the access to technology and to resources in general, there should be a way. It shouldn't be impossible for them, right?
Well, actually, they have more information because they have IP addresses, they have cookies like device identifiers, so they are able to see much more than we do. Actually, we're outsiders. We're just spectators, and
but we're very good at this.
So absolutely agree. If we are able to do it, they certainly are able to do it because for them it's much easier.
Yeah, because they can go to the root of each account.
I wish I had the info that they have. Yeah, then we could do so much more. Yeah.
Have you ever contacted one of those corporations to not only to say, hey, you got a problem over there, but maybe something, hey, we could help you to help sort this out?
But
they don't like us because
what?
If somebody creates another 100,000 troll accounts, then the number of users of this platform grows, and if we come like you have, hundreds of thousands of fake accounts, then the shares of that social media platform, the value goes down. So we're the ones destroying the platform, basically.
Okay, that's not good news.
No.
Okay, so
it would be risky for us to start contacting the social media. I was quite a lot in contact with Facebook. Very limited contact with Twitter, but there was a case recently where there was an American company that was investigating hate speech narratives on X. And Musk was so upset that he started a very nasty court case, and these people did nothing wrong. It was actually good that they showed that there was so much hate speech, but Musk didn't like it because he didn't want anyone to know about all this hate speech on his platform. So he started really bizarre court cases against them.
Well, really bizarre in conclusion with Musk is, come across it often. I mean, Musk is a bizarre character in it of itself.
I actually had quite positive feelings based on what I knew at the time from before he took over this X, Twitter.
Yes, same.
And then he took it over, and I was shocked. With all the far right and Russian people, he started talking to the propaganda he was pushing, and it got worse and worse. It's still getting worse.
Is it?
Yeah.
I mean, I had this feeling about Elon Musk. I kind of felt a sympathy for this weird, quirky, kind of, not necessarily an innovative dude, but someone who just wanted to get things done, like with Starlink, with SpaceX.
Yeah, with Tesla, etc. It's amazing what he did.
Yeah, he was the one who fostered the conversation about electronic cars. I mean, before Tesla, as far as I could tell, electronic cars were something like to be laughed at. No one took it seriously, and it was always a very minor alternative. And Tesla was pretty much the first electric car that people wanted to have. It was a symbol of something good.
Yeah, not entirely true, because there were some other popular cars like Nissan Leaf is very popular, but he definitely.
Can you compare this to Tesla?
I agree that Musk changed that market, and Musk also reanimated the market of space flights.
Yes.
I think the guy did a lot of good stuff, and let's not forget that before Musk took over, there was Jack Dorsey, the old founder of Twitter, who was making decisions all by himself as well. So I think it was 5 years ago or something, and people asked me at some kind of seminar, what is the largest foreign influence on our democracy? Then it would be Jack Dorsey, because he was making decisions who to ban and who to unban in Twitter, and which kinds of messages he would personally delete. All by himself, also without paying any kind of responsibility to states or to governments or whatever. And Musk said, well, I'm going to do it differently, which
kind of polar
really
opposite.
looked good in theory, because he said,
he never did.
I always will only listen to court orders asking me to take things down. But in the meanwhile, I will admit everything and everybody. And that really backfired.
The idea was that he wanted to start some sort of group of people, some sort of commission about what to do, and he never did. So he made a lot of promises, and he said, "I will take care of the trolls." But in actuality, the platform is now like overrun by hundreds and thousands or millions of these trolls.
Yeah, I mean, false promises are also pretty tied to his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. I mean, the plan was okay, but
it
didn't work out well, and he's not the kind of guy that can handle criticism very well. So,
to put it mildly.
Yeah, indeed.
So
that's interesting question. It's a different platform, but do you know how many accounts Facebook deleted since 2007?
I have no idea.
Or 17, I can't remember. It's 27 billion, so it's like 3-4 times the number of people on the planet.
Okay.
People underestimate how many of these troll farms, troll accounts, fake accounts there are. The problem is huge. It's just that there are not so many companies showing this. So it's rather niche what we do.
Okay. And are Facebook and Twitter, or nowadays X, are those the two mostly infected by such bots and troll accounts?
TikTok is also quite bad. Instagram is quite bad, but
so everything is bad.
No, there are. Well, it depends a bit what you call social media platform, but there are probably, if you map all of them, I think a company that we sometimes work with said that there are about 150 of them. There are also like weird things like this 4chan, but it's also sort of social media platform, and Blue Sky and Mastodon and Truth Social. So if you count all of them, there are really a lot. But of course, the main platforms still are Facebook, X, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok.
Yeah.
And I think Facebook is really something that allows a lot of discussion. I mean, on
in
Instagram,
theory,
you're always stuck to pictures and to videos.
Yeah.
Same goes for TikTok. So it's really different in the way that it's consumed by people. What also always strikes me is how different Facebook is used in, for instance, the United States compared to Europe. Here in the Netherlands, most people just use Facebook to see pictures of their grandchildren, or to stay in touch with their aunt or old classmates or something. While in the United States and some other countries, it's really political. It's really used differently.
And wouldn't you say that, because I think in Germany, Facebook is on the one hand a place to stay in touch with relatives, friends, etc., but on the other hand, it's a news outlet, because everyone posts different links to different articles. And in my estimation, this is even part of the problem because of how it is perceived. If I post a link on Facebook, it in general just shows the headline. And I know you're the expert. I don't know how many people then really click on the link to read the article under the headline. Some may take this one sentence for granted and run with it.
Yeah, or it's still really terrible, not really news, but it's some sort of propaganda site. I mean, in the Netherlands, sort of famous saying like it's true because I read it on Facebook. Well, a lot of this stuff is not true at all. So some people, unfortunately, are very susceptible to propaganda and hoaxes and just want to believe this stuff. They don't care whether it's true sometimes.
This is probably the main issue with those troll farms, that we are like neurologically wired to believe things that we hear often or see often. So if there are many accounts that post the same thing or give you a kind of group feeling and they say something, then you're susceptible to this, right?
Yeah, and another thing which is really stands out here in the Netherlands, at least, is that there is definitely quite a large group that do not trust the government or any governmental affiliated organizations. And they don't see themselves as conspiracy thinkers, but they do share a lot of propaganda because it's anti-government kind of propaganda. So anti this World Economic Forum, anti-police, anti-certain political parties, etc. And in the Netherlands, quite a large group, like 30-40% is susceptible, or even part of them push really awful propaganda.
Well, it's kind of the old thinking, don't trust the government too much. I mean,
Big Brother is watching
Big
you, this
Brother
kind of
is
stuff.
watching you. So for example, in Russia, I'm pretty sure we would all agree that not trusting the government is a step into the right direction.
I think a lot of people don't trust their government, but they also don't protest. So there's nobody really opposing Kremlin or Putin, unfortunately.
I have no idea. I don't think so. I don't know. And on the one hand, I think that if a country does something in foreign politics, not necessarily the whole country stands behind it. Not all the people stand behind it. There may be oppositions. I don't know. I can only imagine how Russia handles opposition from some very prominent cases. I really can't say. I have no idea.
Yeah, I lived there for years, so I have some idea. But it's a very long, detailed discussion that we would have to undertake to understand a bit more about how. The one thing is that you can't trust these polls that are being done because,
of course not.
And people, even though they may not approve of Vladimir Putin, they're so scared they will never say this. So even if there is a legitimate poll and they really ask people and they really write down the answer that people give, it might not be the real answer that these people provide. And a lot of people are very scared. I mean, there was last week, there was a woman and she donated about 50 euro to Ukrainian army because she doesn't like this war in Ukraine. 50 euro. And she got 12 years in prison.
No.
Yeah, there are hundreds of these cases. So...
But isn't there, or shouldn't there be a point when the populace rises up against such violence?
I doubt it. Yeah.
Because is it still too practical for them to just take
No, but already
right?
more than 10 years ago, people were like, yeah, it's bad, but we can't change anything. So it's really like they don't feel that they should take action and go protest or complain or whatever. So
is it this old? Well, someone should do something, but not me.
Yeah, it's like this also. Yeah.
That, and don't forget what happened in Northern Africa, the Arab Spring, that where people fought for change.
Yeah.
It didn't really get any better because once the government was thrown over, there came a different government who acted exactly the same way, or maybe in some cases like Mali, even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that people are always afraid for change, and there are plenty of examples where that change didn't work out very well.
Or it got a lot worse.
So,
Iraq is terrible.
So at least if you know your government and know where you don't trust them, at least you have some kind of security.
Like if you know
what you're up to.
when and where to duck and cover, it's still uncomfortable, but you at least know when to duck in your head.
Exactly.
Okay. Back to the troll farms. So if you look at politics today, what is the amount of, or other saying this differently, where do troll farms interfere with real world politics?
Well, first of all, there are a lot of countries that use these kind of troll farms. Already years ago, there was an Oxford study. I think they found them in 81 countries, these kind of troll farms. So it's not just Russian, but it can also be Azerbaijani and Turkish and from India, and China is very famous. It's called 50 Cent Army, so they have real people behind them. We even found at some point there were people in prisons that the government gave them a laptop and they had to spread certain propaganda. But if you went through their timeline, they were posting about their terrible conditions in some Chinese prison. So
okay,
yeah, it's weird to understand that you have troll accounts and these people are in prison.
So
sometimes you find really weird stuff.
You just need people in numbers. You just need people.
Yeah, well, you can use bots, but in a case of a fully automated bot army, we can usually it's not so difficult to determine whether it's a bot, because it will stick to certain times or certain retweets of certain accounts. So you can find out whether it's automated.
But don't forget that it isn't always that orchestrated. Here in the Netherlands, we have some politicians who start spreading lies around certain topics, and all their followers are just promoting that. So it's really grassroots. It's real people that just blindly believe what their leader is saying, and they just keep repeating it over and over again. So that's not orchestrated. Nobody's being paid. Nobody's sitting behind a laptop in a large building. It's all people sitting in their attic rooms at night, trying to repeat what the lies that their party or the party they feel they should vote for are spreading.
It's like a form of tribalism. Everyone in my tribe says this, so I have to say it too.
And in return, you get respect. You get the feeling that you belong to a group.
It nurtures real core human feelings.
Indeed. But we really look at accounts that belong together, and there's one company or one group behind it. And sometimes it's amazing. We still have so amazing results sometimes. One of the most fascinating things to see was when we years ago were investigating this internet research agency that with certain campaigns, hundreds of accounts were pushing some sort of disinfo, for instance, about this MH17. And then at 5 o'clock in the evening, they went all for dinner. And they were gone, all of them, 1.5 hours. And then they started again. Then you are 100% sure that this is not... these are not real people, but they belong together. Also, if they all use, for instance, hashtags that never existed, and hundreds of accounts in the same minute start using the same hashtags, it's impossible. It's impossible that a few hundred people somewhere got the same brainwave and start using the same non-existent hashtag.
And how do you I mean, I get it if they behave in very significant patterns that you can recognize, but how can you decide or investigate where they are from? How does this work?
In a lot of cases, we can't be 100% sure because, what Richard already said, we don't have the IP addresses. And even if you have the IP addresses, it doesn't mean that we can find exactly where they are. But one thing that really helps, what we often, or in most cases do, is that we can analyze, if we pull in a lot of posts from a certain account, then we can see at what time it becomes active. And then if it's in another time zone, so it starts at 6 in the morning, well, the chance that somebody here in the Netherlands starts at 4, 5, 6 is very low. So then we can determine in what time zone they are. So when we started analyzing for EU, we also analyzed a lot of those accounts, like in what time zone are you?
Okay.
And some of them were either in Russia or even in central Russia, or even possibly in Asia, because they were quite different with our time zone.
Another giveaway can be when accounts stop tweeting or posting on certain national holidays. Then you can see by the absence of the posts that people are originating from a certain country.
So the people that work in these agencies, they they want to disrupt democracy, but they take a day off on their national holiday.
Yeah, they have the official governmental holidays. Yeah. Or the other thing, other brilliant things that we found is, we found troll armies that only work on Mondays till Fridays from 9 to 5. So we had this Polish army, and these people didn't post anything in the evening and also not in the weekend. Yeah, what is the chance that you have 50 accounts and they all stop at 5 in weekdays and they don't post in the weekend? So it's a business thing.
Yes.
I mean, a normal person also posts something on Saturday. If they post on Wednesday,
midnight,
why not? Yeah, exactly. But then, so you have some brilliant tricks if you know what you're doing.
I mean, what is the better time to drop some some political slur than midnight on Saturday when you're blackout drunk or so?
Yeah.
But they don't do it. They have their working hours.
Only 9 to 5. Yeah, weekdays only. Yeah.
Okay.
But which is not practical, because if you post something in the middle of the night, it's much easier to get it in a trending topic, for instance.
Yeah,
so
because
it
there
can
are less
actually
posts.
be a good strategy to get things trending. If I post something at midnight and I get a little bit of traction, then chances are big that it is still trending in the morning when everybody wakes up, and the first thing they see, trending topic, hey, this and this.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense.
But there are a lot of these things that we use. It depends a bit on what social media platform there is. But on X, there are about 23 of these characteristics that you can use to determine whether it's a group belonging to one company or one person. What we also do, for instance, we look at creation dates of accounts. There are still a lot of troll farms, and all accounts were created in a couple of days. And if you have real people on whatever topic you can think of, it doesn't matter whether it's about LGBT or whether it's about history or some political topic. If you have hundreds of accounts, then they should have been created, you would say, at least in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But if you have one topic and you have hundreds of accounts and they were all created on 1 day or 2 days, then it's also a troll farm. It's impossible to find this otherwise.
Yeah. Okay, and what do these accounts post? Not specifically, but how is the tone, the content? Is it to paraphrase, just only MAGA, go Trump, or is it more subtle? What are the messages that these accounts push?
It depends very much on the origin of where this troll farm comes from. So these Russian accounts can be very aggressive, but in some cases not. In Chinese cases, they also post stuff which are not even propaganda related. So they promote, for instance, like visit a certain beautiful Chinese city, or they're very proud that some Chinese woman went onto some space station or something like that. It's not even related to political stuff, but it's also like promoting the good things of that country. In this case, China, the Olympic Games, this kind of stuff.
And sometimes promoting the bad things that are actually true in other countries. For instance, if there's a school shooting or something in the United States, then you can know for sure that Chinese troll accounts are going to jump on that and really emphasize, hey, look how failed this United States is because they can't even protect their own citizens.
Of course,
they let their children die because they sell guns to everybody, which is actually, well, kind of true. And they emphasize the weak points of what happens in certain countries, to emphasize that they are better, and also to stir up the pot, to make sure that people will complain more about their government, say, hey, well, good point, United States government doesn't do anything to protect our children.
They have a valid point there, and this reminds more of like an advertising battle between I don't know, Pepsi and Coca-Cola.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's online marketing. Yeah.
But for instance, Russia takes any topic where they can divide the population. So they post a lot of anti-vaccination kind of posts. Don't take a vaccine because you will die. Or it's very much related to anti-LGBTQ plus kind of topics, political topics, racism, immigrants, and of course you have a lot of this Russian propaganda aimed at Ukraine at the moment because of this war. So they amplify stuff. Then, for instance, some missile hits something in Ukraine, and they will tell it's not our missile, it's a Ukrainian missile, for instance, or Zelensky buys the 10th mansion of so many millions, and it's always fake. But a lot of people apparently don't check this kind of stuff and just retweet it because they want to believe that their money is like misused by Ukrainian governments. This propaganda aimed at Ukraine is quite insane still.
You can always create doubts by introducing an alternative story.
Yeah.
Because there's always some people who will believe it, and even the people who don't believe it will always say, hey, well, did you know the story that MH17 wasn't shot down by a Russian rocket, but there were planes in the sky?
So they don't offer just the negative, like this and this is not so, but they offer something instead.
Yeah.
And maybe to point out the obvious, these Russian trolls, of course, they camouflage as American accounts.
Or Germans. So when we worked for EU, we looked at Germany, France, Italy, and Netherlands. And they look like regular German people. But in Germany, they were all like pro-AfD, and they promoted. They were all or pro-AfD, or they post as AfD accounts. Very much they pushed like we are hetero because they are always anti-LGBT.
Yeah.
They always pushed like nobody should use vaccines anymore, not just for COVID, but any disease. That's what they really liked. And they push like massive amounts of far right and propaganda that fits with the Russian narratives.
Okay.
And in France they look like French people, and in Netherlands they look like Dutch people. Yeah.
Okay. Let me start differently. If there are some of those Russian accounts, and they, for example, push these pro-right-wing AfD agenda in Germany, why? Have they been contracted by someone from Germany, or why do they do this? If
AfD is is quite pro-Russian. Russia is known for having ties to these far-right parties, not just in Germany, but also, for instance, Le Pen. And here in Netherlands, Wilders is also quite pro-Russian. Even after MH17 was shot down, this Wilders went to Russia with this Russian-Dutch pin, like he's a friend, and he was blaming Dutch people that they were so Russophobic, etc. So a lot of these far-rights are very sympathetic towards Russia.
Why?
But it's possible that there is cooperation, of course. But this far right also divides the country.
Yeah. Yeah,
so for Russia, it would be very nice if you destroy the current government and then have some far right party, because they're very pro-Russian. That really like targets EU and your democracy if they do this.
You sometimes get the feeling that the Russian government is the ultimate James Bond kind of villainous evil.
Yeah, well, when I was young and I watched a lot of these movies in 80s and 90s, there was this Cold War. It's still at some point in 70s, and every movie there were bad Russians, and I thought like it's so exaggerated. And now I think like maybe it wasn't exaggerated enough. Yeah.
Or maybe it was exaggerated back then because it was really kind of comical.
Yeah, or in some cases it's probably worse than what they showed in these movies back then. That's still unusual to realize.
Or probably it with Vladimir Putin in office, it became what the Americans used as a caricature, and now it's. What I try to say is maybe it wasn't as hard and as evil back then, but nowadays it is.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not sure, but how can one country concentrate and center all of this destructive energy?
Well, if you find enough people or employ enough people that can push out massive, but it's like in Germany. In the Second World War, they understood that if you own the press, that's one of the most important things to keep your population under control. If you control the press and you can write whatever you want, and social media is not that different from this. You also share a lot of, like what you also said, articles or fragments of videos or links to certain programs, etc. So you also control the news, and Russia understands this. And normal people, they post a picture of their barbecue with friends or whatever, or pictures of their grandchildren. And if you give such a social media platform to Russia, they will use it basically as a weapon. Aimed at your population, try to get far right more popular in that country, divide people by telling them that they shouldn't use vaccines. And of course you won't see that these are Russian accounts, because the moment that people see like this person is located in Moscow and he has some Russian name, of course they will understand it's a Russian troll. So this person, this account will look like it's German or French or Italian or whatever.
What would you say, what amount of accounts are there on social media? I mean, this is a very wild estimation, but just give me a number, like one of every 100, one of every 50 accounts is a...
I'm pretty sure that more than half of all users on this X is Trollfarm or some fake propaganda account.
More than half?
I think so, yes. Yeah.
Also on Facebook?
Yeah, probably. But they deleted 27 billion accounts. Yeah. So there is a reason that you have a lot of data that they have a lot of fake accounts, and they still delete per month millions of these accounts. There are statistics. I don't know from the top of my head, but they delete millions of these fake accounts. We were contacted at some point by police here in the Netherlands, and they said we found data on some sort of data center somewhere, and it was a company selling accounts, social media accounts. So you can buy, I don't know, 100,000 accounts on Twitter or even LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. And they said We have all data, so the handles of these accounts, names of accounts, even email addresses behind it. We have everything, but we are not technically capable to see what they do. And they asked us, could you possibly investigate what are these accounts doing? And said, yeah, of course, that's what we do. And then we asked, how many accounts do you have? And they only had a few. But this guy answered, I have 125 million accounts. There was just one small company selling some accounts. 125 million.
Okay.
It would take me a lot of... It would take us years to investigate what they were doing.
So when you answered the phone, you expected something like maybe 100 or so?
Yeah, 100,000. I would have said like, oh, that's a lot of accounts. But then it was 125 million? Okay.
So the internet is probably basically populated with...
Not specifically internet, but social media platforms are percentage-wise, it's quite a lot of fake or propaganda.
So the
or
humans
troll farm
are
accounts.
in the minority already, probably.
Well, there's still people behind it.
Yeah, but there's maybe one guy behind 50 accounts.
Possibly, yeah.
So the account numbers outweigh real human beings.
Definitely. Well, if Facebook deleted
Yes,
27 billion people,
Yes.
it's 3 times the number of people on the planet. So, yeah.
But it's not always about the number of accounts. There was an investigation on the Myanmar army posting fake news and propaganda against Rohingya people, which ended with a genocide. And that was only a few hundred accounts that were used. And it had a very large impact.
Yeah, but even
made an entire country hate the Rohingya people.
Yeah. But even this internet research agency, back then people thought it was a lot of accounts. We had like 5,000. That was the maximum I ever found of these internet research agency accounts. But in France, it's hundreds of thousands of these Russian accounts.
Okay. So there's a lot of fuckery going on.
Definitely.
With the advent of AI, I have a feeling that the situation can get worse.
AI will help in creating fake videos, in creating fake voices, in creating fake messages, and quickly producing large amounts of content for a very low price. But deep fakes or fake news is, as we already established, as old as humankind.
Yeah.
The real difficulty, the real challenge in getting fake news across on social media is not the content creation.
It's the spread.
It is the spread. So yes, it will help you create large amount of content, but it is not that much about the content as you would think. So it will help a little.
So in other words, it's not important to create 100 memes, but to create one meme and get it distributed by 100 or 1,000 accounts.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. We in this EU project, we've seen a lot of use of AI-generated pictures.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that popular always. But the content was massive. They had a lot of these pictures, so it was really widely used. But it wasn't it didn't have a lot of impact.
I read that when you mentioned deep fakes, that. And it's not that long ago, I guess like 1 or 2 years, when deep fakes became, popular, kind of. And it's not so much that what people feared back then, that there will be, I don't know, a deep fake of a political leader declaring war, to go very simple, which is, as far as I know, never happened. But the fact that people know that there are high-quality deep fakes makes them, they automatically distrust all the things they see.
Yeah, I think
not in a
that's
good way.
well said. I think that the advance of very high-quality deepfakes actually made people more aware of the risks.
Okay, yeah.
And one other thing that is important to stress is that you don't necessarily need fake content to to influence. I think the most beautiful example of this is the old Monty Python sketch where there are two pilots sitting in an airplane talking to each other, and one says to the other, "Hey, I'm bored." "Yeah, I'm bored as well." "Oh, what are we going to do?" "Oh, I know something." And then one of the pilots grabs the intercom and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I have an important announcement to make. I want to stress that the left wing of this aircraft is not on fire. I repeat, the aircraft is not on fire. There's no reason to panic." And then you hear all the panic in the back of the aircraft.
And everybody jumps out in the end, yeah.
What they essentially were doing was spreading a true message. There was no fire on the aircraft.
Yeah.
One of the things that we saw during COVID, we did a large project investigating where all the propaganda came from and to see how many people were really controlling the content. And one of the things that we found was that a large amount of content being spread by anti-vaccines was actually from a few government sites, for instance, the National Institute of Health in the UK. And when we looked at it, it were old scientific papers that were taken out of context. And for instance, you had those medicines like ivermectin and such, which were being promoted by anti-vaxxers as a real cure for COVID or something. And those were scientific papers from 20 years old, which could be interpreted.
So they were disproven already.
Yeah, but you can still find them online, and
of course.
And if you use this, you can say like, "Hey, it works against COVID." But it was already, there were 20 studies after it that it didn't work. But if they find it, they can still use it.
Yeah, this is something that you come across often. That someone has some outlandish theory and says there's also a study that proves my theory.
You can always find some study.
You can always find a paper that proves it.
Yeah.
And but this is of course not how science works, because if you say there's probably for the ivermectin, there's a study that says it does, then you have to know that you have to look at the date and the whole scientific surrounding, like what came after.
Exactly, and you have to understand statistics, you have to understand all the context, you have to understand all the medical terms. So to a layman, they will only look at the conclusion or even at the interpretation that somebody else tells them. And they will absolutely say, "Oh yeah, that is true, see, here's the proof." I mean, there's people spreading all kinds of fake news about that the moon landing would have been staged. And there's all about optics and reflections and how that flag was standing on the moon, and that should be proved that it was all filmed in a Hollywood studio. And they're using physics that they don't understand. I mean, if you have one of my hobbies is to look in the flat earthers groups on Facebook and such, and then there's always some new guy who says, "Yeah, but if I'm in an airplane, then I can see the curvature of the Earth. So I don't know." And then everybody's like, "Oh, that's because the window is curved, you idiot." Of course.
Flat earthers are a breed of its own. But if you look into these flat earther groups, what the thing that I still don't understand is they say basically that the whole scientific body and probably all the politics, if I don't know, Europe, USA, Russia, and China could agree on something, then it is the Earth is round. Mm-hmm. So. But if this is all a conspiracy, why all the effort to hide the fact that it should be a playing field? Why? Can you explain this to me?
Because it's a conspiracy, of course.
Deep state conspiracy.
Of course they're doing all this work, because this is so important to hide.
I still don't get it.
Yeah, but it's the same with this 9/11. They also think it's like some sort of deep state conspiracy, and it wasn't Bin Laden, and there was an inside job, and there were already explosives. It's insane if you read
also
this stuff.
Misuse of physics with melting points and heat, and I don't know.
This actually I found I mean, I like a good conspiracy. I like to read into, and I think it's sometimes fascinating.
Definitely.
how, especially when it comes to aliens and so on and so forth. And just the other day, I watched a new documentary, not a conspiracy one, but a solid one, on 9/11. And I remember on 9/11, I was working at the entrance of a hospital, and I had access to TV, and I saw the whole thing, and I remembered all the time when you were just sitting there not knowing what was going on, because information came very short. It basically did not come in. Most people said, we don't know who this was. Then some time later, an idea or a theory appeared, was disproven later, and so on and so forth. But when the towers collapsed, it really looked weird. And I'm not saying that it was an inside job, but I can understand that someone draws the wrong conclusion out of this, because all of a sudden the tower collapsed maybe pretty much perfectly and fall down. I don't understand.
But if you would look at a lot of these demolition projects, there are movies about that they collapse some high-rise building. It doesn't look so weird anymore.
Yeah, I think that's because most people don't usually daily look at
Demolition
collapsing
videos.
buildings.
Yeah.
So
No,
of
but
course
true.
it looks weird, because it is weird to see those two towers collapse.
Yeah.
But you didn't see it yesterday or the day before that.
Yeah.
So it's weird as an event as such.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There was this wonderful conspiracy video about building number 7, where they all went out of their way to describe. I don't even know if building number 7 fall down or not. But the interesting thing is, you watch one YouTube video about something, and as soon as it is explained in a pseudo-scientific way that makes sense,
it can be quite convincing even.
It can, right?
And to make it worse, we're guilty now as well, because we're now spreading those stories.
Kinda, but
Yeah.
disclaimer: this is
It's
we're pretty
not-
sure that
not a
this is all
conspiracy.
bullshit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, what are? I can only imagine that troll farms and troll groups are just getting started. I mean, they are here to stay, right?
As long as those platforms don't really do anything, it will only grow probably.
Okay, so before we take an outlook into the future, what are some current events that you have investigated, or rather troll farms you have investigated, and how they wanted to affect current events?
Well, the last couple of months, we worked months with a team on these EU election influencing. So the question from EU was, we will have elections, of course, and we want to know if there is a certain party trying to influence these elections. And originally we would do 2 platforms. We would do Twitter, which is now called X, and TikTok. But the minute we started, we already found it was like this, that we found huge troll farms in Germany. There is no physical boundary to social media platform, of course, but we can also do investigations specifically in certain languages. So we only collect certain German words, German hashtags, and then we can still keep it sort of within a certain country. So if we look at only German language and words and hashtags, etc., related to EU elections, we can be pretty sure that most of the data will actually come from Germany. But if you, for instance, in COVID time would use English words like corona and COVID, and you wouldn't use some sort of language barrier, it will pull in posts, tweets about corona from everywhere, and it will be billions of tweets. It's impossible. You couldn't even analyze it. You couldn't pull it in, because the platform will see that you try to pull in insane amounts of data. So this is something that you should never do. There are boundaries to what you can technically do. But for this EU elections, we looked at German language, Italian language, Dutch language, French language, and we found them like instantly. It took a lot of time. So we've worked about 3 months only on these 4 countries.
Is this a long amount of time or not so? 3 months?
It's a large project.
For us, this is quite a big project time-wise.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did you find?
Well,
is this classified or
no? It was published after we finished it. The EU held a press conference, and they invited newspapers like the German Der Spiegel, British The Guardian, Dutch Volkskrant, and they also asked French Le Monde, but I don't know why, but they couldn't join that press meeting. But after that press meeting, it was published in those newspapers, and then a lot of newspapers in Europe, but also even in Japan, copied the news, took it over. So it was quite worldwide news at that point.
Yeah, and what did you find?
Huge troll farms in Germany, Italy, and France. France was the worst.
And those troll farms were supporting whom?
In Germany and France, it was they were supporting far right. So in Germany, AfD. And in France, it was partly they were supporting Le Pen, but also this Maréchal and some other politicians, some far right, not only Le Pen. In Italy, it was only limited related to EU elections, but they were pushing a lot of anti-immigrant type of propaganda. But we did find them because we were analyzing very specific words and hashtags related to elections.
And you can trace all this back to Russia?
What we do, that's, I think it's an interesting way of working. There are other companies that investigate propaganda, but for us, we pull in a lot of data on a certain topic. So it can be LGBT, for instance, or it can be some far-right topic or a political topic or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Then you get a database with, for instance, 100,000 posts or 500,000 posts or 1 million posts, doesn't really matter. What we do is we look at really weird characteristics. We don't look at the content, so it doesn't matter what they post. If there would be a group in it, for instance, of a few thousand accounts that are promoting Coca-Cola, then we probably would also find it. But then it's not propaganda related, but it's related to like pushing some sort of product, more advertising. So we did find those kinds of examples. But what we look at is, for instance, if you have a certain topic, I can't tell you all the detail because some of this is classified, but if you have like 200,000 posts about AfD, for instance, during this EU elections, and a lot of these accounts were created in a couple of days, that is something really weird. Or if we analyze weird accounts because they grow quite fast in number of following and followers, and we analyze and we find that they're not in German time zone, but probably somewhere in mid-Russia or in China, it's also unlikely that it's a German account. Somebody's mimicking a German account. And we have a lot of those characteristics that we use to analyze. So we can, in the end... and the client will also have no doubts that we really found a certain group of, I don't know how many thousands of accounts, and there's one person or one company or one government behind it.
Yeah. Is it somehow quantifiable to put a number to the success of those troll farms? Like how many % in an election they were able to gain for a certain party, or is this hard?
No, we can. But it depends a bit. If the troll farm is really large, it can take us a lot of time to map the exact number of accounts in this troll farm.
Yeah.
And if we have a certain investigation, one of the things that we can do, which we also did for the Spiegel, is we can ask the database, like we know which are the troll accounts, but maybe we don't know all of them, but we know, for instance, we have in Germany, we found like, I don't know, 15,000 of those accounts. And we can ask the AfD investigation, for instance, 500,000 posts about AfD. We can ask what the percentage is of those troll accounts pushing this news. And that was in Germany quite high. I think it was like 15%. We don't have all troll accounts, but I think 15% of all AfD-related posts were done by those trolls. But in reality, it's much higher because we only found maybe 10% of this troll farm. So it's
10%.
I don't know. It's just a fictive example. Sorry. I don't because
we do establish a lower boundary by looking at the numbers.
Yeah.
And eventually, if we would spend years in research, then we would be able to determine the entire size.
Yes.
But
it's also
usually
a moving
it's
target.
enough to determine the lower boundary because that's already pretty high.
So, but I'm guessing it's also a moving and evolving target.
Exactly,
so
because they create more accounts and accounts grow in number of following and followers, so the impact grows and some accounts are deleted, so it's definitely a moving target. Yeah.
Sometimes we even find networks that are being prepared that are not active yet.
So
we can see them growing.
Pre-production.
Yeah.
Quasi.
So only setting up we also here we had a lot of those accounts in Germany that were inactive for sometimes months or years, and then like months before elections they were activated. So it's sort of sleeper agent. They're not active, or they deleted all their content. But in that case, we can often find if content was deleted because replies to their posts can still be found. So if you look at the handle and posts containing this handle from the time before they became active, and you can still find replies, then you know that they deleted all their content.
Okay, I'm no expert in legal questions, but if another political entity, another country interferes with one country's election, this sounds like a little bit crimey to me. So.
Yeah, but I don't think there is really legislation that it's illegal and that you can start a court case for it. And the people hope that social media platforms will do something, but forget about it. They really don't.
Yeah, like you said, they are for better or for worse. If they have more numbers active on their platform, they are happy because the shareholders are happy.
Yeah, because it looks like you have more real users because nobody knows how many are real and how many are fake. So if we would be able to report that half of all accounts on X are fake, then the shares of this X would plummet. It would be worth nothing probably.
The only actual example that I can find now I think about it is the United Nations court case for the International Court of Law against the Myanmar army.
Was that finalized already?
I'm not sure. I think it's still going on. But that is an actual court case against the government of a country.
Yeah. But even, for instance, in the UK, when there was this referendum for Brexit, so before they left the UK, we found accounts that didn't change their location. So we had people with British names, but their location was like Moscow or Magadan or somewhere in Russia. And they had a very active role, but this Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage were very active in suppressing all investigations into what Russia was influencing during this Brexit because it only helped them.
Yeah, of course. So Russian troll farms played also a role in in Brexit, or in spreading the word about Brexit. But because this is what I'm getting from what you're saying, it's moving the needle. It's influencing people in their daily lives and slowly but surely changing their view on certain topics of reality.
It would be nice if there would be more legislation that these huge troll farms are actually illegal. That would help.
They are not illegal.
I don't know of any legislation where it says that it's illegal.
You're free to create an account and promote whatever you think is worth promoting.
Yeah, well, cool. But I mean, this is like we established something like 2014, like 10 years ago, or even a couple of years earlier. Like it started in the 2010s, to make it roughly. So we had more than 10 years where God knows what on the political spectrum was influenced by foreign troll farms. And no legal action has taken place?
There is one, but it's not really a troll farm, but it's similar type of influencing was this Cambridge Analytica.
Yes.
Where they micro-target on social media platform was mainly Facebook. It's also a Russian invention, by the way.
Yeah.
And there were the court cases, was also millions, but the company is bankrupt now, but there are likely still similar companies out there. And Facebook sold a lot of that data that they basically need. It probably still happens.
Okay.
These people claimed there was somebody who worked there leaked a lot of this data. I was in contact with this sort of director at this Cambridge Analytica, so I have a lot of this data from this company, including presentations, and they had this sheet in this presentation. We are the ones who made Brexit possible. So they claimed Brexit was the result of their work.
No.
Yeah, and there were a lot of court cases in the UK because of this.
This was in their PowerPoint presentation to advertise for their company. We made Brexit possible.
Yeah, we did Brexit, basically. Yeah. I can show you. I can send you the slides if you like.
Okay, so these people pretty much... This is something to wrap their head around. Okay.
But that's micro-targeting because they really targeted like on the countryside, some group of people who drive trucks or whatever, or farmers, and they would micro-target them, and then they would get them to vote. And some of these groups never voted, but now they did, and in the end, these people all voted against. They all wanted Brexit, so it worked. UK left the EU. But in this case, if you have a troll farm influencing EU elections and they make stuff trending and they have so massive numbers of accounts, then probably every French person on X will see these posts. So it's more like macro targeting than micro targeting. It's worse than this Analytica, I think.
What's going to happen? Can you guys give an outlook?
Well, one of the most interesting things, and it might decide the future of social media platforms, is what will they? They're now putting a lot of pressure on Musk because of what is happening on X.
Yeah,
and it's not only related to troll farms, but it's also misuse of these. You pay like €8 per month for this blue check mark.
Yeah.
And he also sells them to a lot of fake accounts, and they don't moderate these. If you pay, then you're probably left alone by moderation more than normal accounts without this blue check. So it's misuse of this blue check mark, and the propaganda is like 10 times as bad as before he took it over.
Well, Musk will be having it coming in any way, because I lately talked to a journalist. They are gathering cases against Musk, not only in terms of Twitter or X, also false promises on Tesla and on many companies.
He was manipulating before, I think, using social media to increase the worth of Tesla and this kind of stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Of course,
He's talking very weird stuff, even in the conference calls when about Tesla and so on and so forth. So maybe we see a very probably spectacular and dramatic downfall of Elon Musk. But
it's possible, yeah.
But you said this will decide the future of social media.
Yeah, it might, because if this will be like the sort of something went, several things went really wrong on a platform, and they managed to tackle this somehow. It's also possible that Musk will say I'll pull the plug for Europe and we can't use X anymore in Europe. That's not impossible. He already threatened, I think, to do this.
I think that one of the advantages here is that these excesses are helping the EU to build legislation, like the Digital Services
to actually
Act,
do something, yeah.
So it's does help in making people and politicians more aware of the risks, because there are so many real-world examples of how things are going wrong. So let's look at it from the bright side.
Yes, of
same
course.
as what you said with respect to deepfakes. People are becoming more resilient because of all the weirdness that is going on.
I mean, the real downside to all this is that that legislation is very, very slow, while the technical improvements are very fast and ramping up still.
Yeah, they should have done more years ago, in my opinion.
Oh, definitely.
And they did. Nobody did.
Definitely, but I mean, in my estimation, for many politicians, the internet in the 20s, in the zeros, or in the 2010s was something, was for kids and marketing. I feel like many politicians haven't realized the political power of the internet until it was
I think
too late.
slowly they understand. They will understand. Yeah.
But that's a sociological thing and not a technological thing. Because if you look at the technology side, then Twitter and Facebook are pretty much the same as they were 15 years ago. They did not change much from a technical point of view.
Yes.
They only got larger and more regular people became part of the networks. And they were, because of that, more interesting to use to influence people. But that's all sociological.
That's true, but I would say we are at an intersection of technological and sociological, because our social life is represented by technology more than ever. And there I see the problem.
The role that social media, for instance, plays in our daily lives,
Yes.
kids more than grown-ups, is quite heavy compared to some years ago.
Yeah, imagine it's for some people it's completely normal to spend, I don't know, 3 to 4 hours on Instagram daily. Yeah, this is normal.
Yeah, but I started using it less. But for our work, of course, yeah, you need to for your investigations, you need to have this. But it's more work related than.
I realized that it has this addictive feeling, you know, especially when I don't know, when you're tired and a sane mind would say, okay, let's just go to sleep. But then you're sitting there and just scrolling through Instagram and 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and you gain nothing from it. Like, no one will ever say, oh, I spent 2 hours on social media and it was great. Will no one say ever.
My kids do.
Well, we will.
Yeah.
They spend hours on TikTok, and if I ask them, what did you do this afternoon? Well, we gathered with a few friends. Oh, what did you do? Well, we looked at TikTok. Yeah, it was great fun. We saw a lot of weird videos.
Okay.
They really do that as a pastime. My daughter loves cooking, so she always goes on TikTok to see cooking videos. Well, if you go on TikTok to see cooking videos, what do you get? All the hashtag threadwife,
Really?
right-wing stuff,
Yeah.
women belong in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's amazing. But the thing is, I also like some well-made cooking videos, for example, on Instagram. But it's not like you're looking for something. You're just opening the damn phone and what has the internet for me? So you're not looking for something. You're just opening your eyes and you get fed. It's like a force feeding.
Yeah, with things that are in
delicious.
your bubble.
Yeah.
And especially TikTok is famous for having a really quick adjusting algorithm that
Yes.
shows you more of the things that you just saw.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Is TikTok something that could maybe really be banned for good? Or is TikTok here to stay?
There are countries that already banned TikTok.
Yes.
I think it's more known that you have all these trolls on Facebook and X than on TikTok. But there are more and more investigations that find these troll farms on TikTok, and it's sort of Chinese governmental influencing thing. So it's difficult to say what will happen. But
to be honest, I think it's a bit of shooting the messenger. TikTok became large, it became popular, but as soon as you ban TikTok, then another platform will pop up and become popular and will have the same algorithm. There's also stories about TikTok being infected with spyware. So politicians shouldn't have it on their phones, etc. But there actually is no evidence at all, and there were many researchers that were reverse engineering the apps on their phones to see if there was any kind of logic in there that would enable TikTok on a phone to, for instance, record audio or to look at your emails or such. And there was no evidence of that. So
I would totally agree with you that TikTok is not like, the equation is not TikTok equals spyware. But if a social media platform would be banned, or if TikTok would be deleted or somehow, whatever, I don't think that it would work that just something else would pop up and take the place of it, especially not with the same algorithm, because even we have very few social media sites, but each one is unique and was always what it is. It evolved to a certain degree, but I'm pretty sure that if you take away TikTok, something else, something new and something different has to come up to gain as much followership.
I'm not sure. Here in the Netherlands, we had a social media platform, Hives, and I think that almost every Dutch citizen had a Hives account.
Hives?
Hives, yes.
Okay.
And at a certain moment, Facebook became more popular, and within 3 or 4 months, Hives was everybody had their new Facebook address on their profile. And within 6 months, it died. It went from 10 million users to almost nothing.
Yeah, but
it
this
just disappeared.
This must have been like 10 years ago.
Yes.
I would argue times were very different. I mean, in Germany we had these networks, kind of like MySpace. Friendster, and then even some university networks. And then slowly but surely everyone moved to MySpace. And I still think the MySpace days were very peaceful and friendly, because you would just check in a few other accounts and then you moved on with your life. And then came Facebook. And this was completely different. Just as TikTok was completely different from, Instagram and so on.
But Instagram tried to copy TikTok already by creating Instagram Reels. So as soon as TikTok disappears, then maybe Instagram Reels or maybe some Snapchat plugin will become popular.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that if TikTok would disappear for whatever reasons, you would need a very fresh and very new iteration of a social network, or what I heard happens more and more, that people are kind of tired of social media and go back to messenger services again. This could also be true. So the groups will get smaller, not that official, and then the troll farms will have a hard time getting in there.
On the other hand, you see those more private, message-oriented services like Telegram that are like the Valhalla for people that are trying to conspire or trying to take over governments, and they're used to actually coordinate propaganda on other networks, because they're
true.
so private. But those groups can become pretty big, and we saw during COVID that there were groups on Telegram with many hundred thousands of people.
Yes.
In there, all protesting against the government and protesting against vaccines.
The epitome of an echo chamber.
So eventually you see that even those social media platforms that are targeted towards, hey, let's get a group with a few like-minded people, can become very large, and they also became places where many memes were shared, etc. And before you know it, it's being taken over by people posting 30-second videos all the time. And hey, there you have it.
Yeah, right.
It's an interesting case that this Pavel Durov is now arrested in France.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Let's see what happens to this platform. Will he show how Russia uses it also in the... because a lot of this coordination of the war in Ukraine is also done apparently through this Telegram.
Uh-huh.
And what I didn't know was that it was also used to spread a lot of child pornography. That was new for me. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. So it seemed like he was not so very pro-Russian because he like sort of fled the US, but then it turned out that he didn't really fled the US. He traveled back 60 times from the moment that he ever left Russia. So he didn't really leave Russia. So
it's really ambivalent, of course, because he had to sell his shares in V-Contacten.
Yeah.
So everybody thought he wasn't really friends with the Russian government.
Yeah, but I think
they eventually came to some kind of an agreement to let each other live and to profit from.
Maybe they made an offer he can't refuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
if
money.
you put someone next
talks.
to a window on the 12th floor,
yeah,
it's also pretty easy to make a choice.
Yeah.
Are there any practical guidelines that one could follow if he's running around on social media to avoid trolls, or are we just outnumbered?
Well, whether we're really outnumbered, I don't know, but it's still quite influential, all this propaganda and troll stuff on whatever social media platform. There are, of course, a lot of tips that you can take into account. I mean, if it was a recently created account and it's pushing hundreds of posts per day, then be careful. If these are websites you don't know and it's proper, stick to the main newspapers and not all kinds of weird links pushing some strange info, of course. Mm-hmm. So there are, and go to the timeline of an account. Look at what they do. Is it a lot of conspiracies that they push or not? But I think to really give people some protection against this, I would definitely make it like sort of part of like from in schools of the lessons that they give. Like watch out for propaganda, how to recognize this. Try to protect your democracy, but also how to behave on social media, because it's insane how many threats you get from accounts. I was working for several years for a Dutch newspaper, and I was the number one person targeted, and I don't know how many hundreds and thousands of threats I got in those years, but it's
like
not very
serious
funny.
Threats.
Yeah. We'll kill you, we'll come by with baseball bats, kill you, people offering money, asking people like where do his kids go to school, this kind of stuff.
Has ever anything happened?
Some pro-Russian people already years ago started court cases against me. It's still ongoing, so I'm still basically probably even financed by Russian government. These people are trying to threaten me and intimidate me with these court cases.
But no one with a baseball bat came by or so?
No.
Good.
No.
That's really good.
Yeah. The thing is that sometimes there's so many of these crazy threats. Like, I don't want to spend all my time running to the police with every threat. That's one. And the second, the chance that something will be done, difficult to tell whether something will be really done with these people. But and also social media platforms don't really do something now. That you can see posts on X. Like there was an account called Nigger Killer 88, I think, and a lot of people reported it. And it was like, we see nothing wrong with the account. And it's like, sorry, but this 88 is like the...
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you know, this
I'm
this
from
stuff.
Germany, I know this code.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So we see nothing wrong with this account. It's like, what the hell? And then people posted pictures of where my house years ago. It's not where I live now. And then I reported like people are threatening me and doxing me and showing where I live. And it's like, we saw nothing wrong with this.
But you are still active on Twitter X.
Yeah, I have a lot of followers, 21,000 followers.
And you're not think like maybe I go to the Meta alternative to Threads or so.
The thing is, I would gladly delete the account, but we would use it for work, so it's not really an option. I could change to a anonymous account without any followers, then I can still look at data.
Yeah, of course,
that's possible.
That's what I do.
Yeah, but
I don't use Twitter at all.
Yeah. Are you on Threads? Or are you absent from social media?
Is anybody on Threads?
Yeah, come on.
The last time I looked at Threads, it was very, very quiet. It was almost abandoned, and nothing was going on there.
It has a weird kind of weird algorithm, but I think there are more than 100 million people already on it.
Because they count the Instagram users?
No. This they don't, as far as I can tell. I'm not here to advertise for Threads because Threads is like, I mean, I've never came to terms with Twitter, and Threads is like you post something, and bam, 36 hours later, the responses come in. So it's really, well, I don't understand this, but it looks really lazy. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that Meta has the resources to fix it, but for some reason they don't.
Well, some of the things they did were deliberate. For instance, they made it very hard to make a chronographical search on Threads, especially to avoid people being able to influence the algorithm. So that's good.
Okay.
Then again, I don't think Meta is any better than X in that respect. I only use Facebook for friends and family, and sometimes I see something very racist or something.
Yeah.
And in my experience, after a few days, I get a message that the content you reported was not deleted, and they don't do anything with content that is very clearly illegal or racist or.
There are also a lot of scams where they try to steal your credit card data. We reported, I don't know how many in the last couple of years. Nothing happens. So anybody can see, especially if you work at Facebook, that somebody's trying to scam your credit card data, but they don't do anything. So it's really weird.
So the platforms actively do nothing.
Exactly, they don't interfere. Yeah, there's almost no moderation or too limited moderation.
And we can agree that they are capable of far more that they are doing.
Definitely, yeah.
Well, they could start by actually deleting the illegal content. Yeah. I mean, the only thing that happened when I reported something that was very racist is that the Facebook moderator forwarded my complaint to the group owner, who then posted a screenshot of my complaint with my name. And called people to dox me. And then I reported that, and that was also not deleted.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. This is like going to the police and
they shoot you or arrest you. Yeah.
Tell him what's going on, and the police said, "Okay, we handle this. Come with here. This guy, look at him. This guy, he lives there, and he says you are not a good man."
Beautiful. Exactly.
Yeah. Nice. So
that is also the same reason that people sometimes do not start actual court cases, because if in the Netherlands you start a court case against somebody, then your name and address will be on the court order.
No.
So if you want to stay anonymous, then don't start a court case against someone, because you will give them extra information.
I think it's possible to avoid this somehow.
Yeah, for a few people maybe, but not for the average.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be the need to avoid it. It shouldn't be there in the first place.
It should be the default, yeah.
Yeah, right. It should be as easy for the average citizen as it can be, and of course as safe as it can be.
True.
Okay, so in another way, different from 15 years ago, the internet is still a real Wild West type of thing. It became
more Wild West since it started. There were people. I can't remember the name of the guy, but there was one person who, when back in the beginning days of the internet, said that it could be the real threat to humanity. He might be right.
Yeah, but there was this dream of the internet. Everyone gets a voice. We democratize the official debate, and this will make everything better. And we have endless ways of communication. And now here we are.
That was before the Arab Spring that people were so optimistic.
Yeah, indeed.
Good point. Good point. Robert, Richard, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your work. This is amazing what you guys do, and I really have to wrap my head around. But in any way, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming all the way to the Netherlands.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you, absolutely.
Und wir sind raus. Ladies and Gentlemen, vielen Dank fürs Zuhören, für die gemeinsam verbrachte Zeit und danke für euren Support. Falls ihr diesen Podcast, also das Projekt Natürliche Ausrede, auch finanziell unterstützen wollt, das geht und ist absolut einfach. Einzelüberweisungen gehen per PayPal. Es gibt eine Abo-Möglichkeit bei Steady. Aber was natürlich auch helfen würde, dass ihr diesen Podcast einfach kostenlos abonniert und vielleicht sogar weiterempfehlt. In den Shownotes gibt es die Links zu dieser Folge, zum Newsletter und auch zu Social Media. Wir hören uns nächsten Montag wieder. Dann spreche ich mit Klaus Armbruster über Tourismus und Massentourismus im Baskenland. Was immer ihr tut, macht's gut. Bis später.